I mean, let's be honest. This is all about nostalgia. If you are the classic family of 4 or 5 in the United States, you're probably looking for a minivan to tote groceries and the kids, right? A $70,000 electric vehicle may not be at the top of your list unless
Yeah.
it really hits your nostalgia button.
Welcome back to Car-Pinionated, our weekly show about cars, the car industry, and driving in general. I'm Doug Stewart, Senior Digital Content Producer at Fox 61 in Hartford. And with me is Glenn Packman, Fairfield County resident and car enthusiast. And Glenn, we have a special guest. Welcome,
Right
everyone.
here on our screen.
Right, Marshall McPeak. Marshall, do you want to introduce yourself?
So my name's Marshall McPeak. I'm the chief weather nerd at the ABC affiliate WSYX in Columbus, Ohio, and unofficially a Volkswagen aficionado and fan.
Okay. And that works out well because we are talking Volkswagens and Volkswagen in general and specific cars. So, I guess I want to lay the groundwork in that Volkswagen has had a bumpy time of late. They are working with their union in Germany because they will have to, it looks like they're going to have to lay people off for the first time in their history, at least post-war history. They have had a lot of sales issues. They've always kind of marginal player in the US, I think, since the 60s. They've had peaks and valleys. They've certainly had a known product, but their sales have gone up and down in this country. And they're facing huge competition in China. So there's a lot of things at play. And we're talking specifically about Volkswagen as its division in the larger Volkswagen group. So, and they're also starting a new division, calling it the Scout after the international
Right.
vehicle that they used to make in this country, and
Which also
80s.
seems to be behind on production, like so
Yes.
many of these other brands, which is really, really,
Right.
really frustrating.
So they're on the verge or about to introduce the ID Buzz.
They did an unveiling at the beginning of June,
Right.
and only in the last maybe 2 weeks has any of the information actually shown up on the Volkswagen website. And so this was something that they had talked about pre-COVID, pre-pandemic, that we're going to come out with.
Longer than that.
But they were originally planning to even have it on the roads pre-pandemic.
Sure.
Well,
Okay.
of course, then things changed a little bit in a few areas. So it has been delayed. It has now been on the road in Europe for more than a year now and seems to be doing well in Europe. But that is not the ID Buzz that they are planning on releasing in the US. So as far as we know so far, the plan is it's supposed to be out in the fourth quarter of this year. Now, according to Volkswagen's website, there are 5 models of the ID Buzz, each of them at a new and different price point, and somewhere between 50 and 70, depending on what you want your base to look like, and going up from there. So the classic two-tone with the white on top and a pick your color on the bottom, that's going to be up at the high end. If you see a single color Buzz running around on the street, somebody bought the low end. So they're going to, it seems like a lot of times you try to, this car looks just like the next one in the model line, except it's got more bells and whistles, and we just changed the number on the line, right? This one, you're going to know as it rolls down the street that, oh, you opted for the cheap seats. Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Anyway, there are 5 different versions now, and it's supposed to be out fourth quarter of this year. When I talked to a dealer about this a few weeks ago and said, "Hey, when do I get to test drive my Buzz?" And they said, "Well, we don't really know because we don't know when we're going to get them and how many we're going to get." This is a big dealership in central Ohio. And they said, "Well, maybe we'll get 2 or 3."
Wow.
So it sounds like this is going to be an issue as well. They're being made in Germany, which, given the labor talks now, who knows how that'll affect things, but they're making them in Germany and shipping them here. So what does that do to the supply chain, and how does that make these available enough to Volkswagen dealers across the country to make people want to run out and get one?
Mhm.
I have questions.
And I have been along a proponent of, if you make every trim level of a car look good, then they're all an advertisement for everything in that brand, everything in that model. Jeff Buckles saw one at the Chicago Auto Show, and his comment was that two-tone color is doing a lot of work.
And it is, because that's the classic that
Mhm.
that, I mean, let's be honest, this is all about nostalgia, right? If you are the you know the classic family of 4 or 5 in the United States, you're probably looking for a minivan to tote groceries and the kids, right? A $70,000 electric vehicle may not be at the top of your list unless
Yeah.
it really hits your nostalgia button. So what we're really looking at here is folks who really like the classic bus or the Westphalia, or pick one of those models. You really like the classic, and you're looking for an updated version of that. But the this is so frustrating. So the one that's running around on the roads in Europe is a 5-seater. It's a little shorter. It's got a shorter wheelbase, and it is, let's just say it is super cute. It is going to be fun. It is going to be your little, run around town kind of mobile. What they're releasing in the US is a 7-seater with, so yeah, I ran a tape measure through the garage to see if this is going to fit, and it might not even fit in the garage, right? But
You both
but
have
it's
diminutive garages then.
right. So, but it's a big vehicle, and to be honest, just adding that extra 10 to 12 inches worth of wheelbase, now it's a Honda Odyssey.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's a minivan, and I I I kind of lost interest.
And you've been
After
talking about this for a long time.
right,
Yes.
we've talked about this and how excited
Yeah.
I was for this, and that I want
Right.
to test drive it, and I want to see, and that, if I test drive it and I don't like it, I'm going to be devastated.
Right.
And at this point, what they're releasing in the US is so far from anything that I'm interested in now, and it's so late.
Yeah.
We've been waiting on this for so long that as a consumer, I'm just like, yeah, I'm done. Thanks for
Yeah.
playing.
And to your point about waiting for so long, you had the original Type 2, and that's the 6, I think, generations of that. Then in 1998, you had a microbus concept along the time of the Beetle was introduced and every other retro future car. Then the Bully, which was, I think, the first electric version, and then the Bud E, Budd, uppercase, lowercase e, and then the ID Buzz, the first generation of the ID Buzz, and now this current what they've gone through. It just Glenn, what are you thinking about the ID Buzz and its role in Volkswagen's lineup?
Just a quick sidebar question before I say anything. VW had their big commercial during the Super Bowl. Wasn't like the last image of
Yeah.
like the ID Buzz and like some sort of containment thing, and it was supposed to be like kind of thing. I think
Yeah.
I got to agree with Marshall on that. We're kind of losing the moment here, you know. um, I've always been a fan of the microbus because because of it's such an icon. It stands for so much, And as somebody who owned a second property 5 miles from where Woodstock took place for 17 years, it resonates with me because we had that hippie connection. Um, and I think you're absolutely right, Marshall. The more they move away from that, the less interesting the vehicle becomes.
Mhm.
And I don't, I'm questioning what's the thinking at VW. What market are they trying to hit? Or are they just sort of just ping, ping, pinging everywhere, I'm dying to see this as well. It could be tremendous, but it sounds like it's just not getting off the ground right now. And that's deeply concerning for a car company that I also truly like. For those who don't know, including maybe Marshall, my very first new car when I was a kid was a Volkswagen Golf, 1986, which I think was still made in Germany at that point.
Yeah.
A terrific car. And I mean, a great place for someone young like myself to start with a new car. It was just,
Mhm.
it didn't have power steering, manual shift. My only gripe about the car was it had the E-light, the little upshift light on the dash. Like, I know when to shift, thank you. But other than that, it was a tremendous car. And I've always been a fan of the company watching, and this could be the next big step. It's just that we're waiting to put the foot down on the step, and it's just like, come on, come on.
It's
I'm
a
doubly antsy about this because I'm going to mention one of my favorite cars for all of those that drink and do the drinking game, the Volvo EX30. I was hoping to own by now. And it's the same thing. When is it getting here?
right.
You
Yeah.
know? And well, they have a problem because it was being built in China and then now Chinese tariffs, and they're trying to avoid that. So they're building them in Belgium, which frightens the hell out of anybody who knows anything about automotives, including myself, having owned a Belgian built Audi at one point. Um, but yeah, so that's my take on it. The car itself, I'm dying to see and get behind the wheel. I'll come down to Ohio. We could do a test drive together if they get one of those three down in your neck of the woods, Marshall.
Who knows when they will finally get here?
Right?
The dealership did not seem confident that it would actually be anytime soon, or that if anybody wanted one, that they'd be able to supply them.
Right.
So running down the nostalgia lane, there was an event here in Columbus in August called Volksfest. It was the 33rd or 34th of these. And a coworker of mine has a 63 candy apple red Carmen Ghia. He's been restoring it. It was his dad's. I said, Kurt, do you remember your dad driving this car? He's like, are you kidding me? I learned to drive in this car. So he kind of grew up with this car, and his dad literally called him one day and said, do you want the car? Kurt was like, well, yeah. He's like, fine, give me your credit card number. I'm shipping it to you now. And all of a sudden, Kurt had a Carmen Ghia in his garage and didn't know what to do with it. He's been working on it for a few years to get it all put together. But point being, we went to see him at Volksfest, and there were dozens and dozens of classic Beetles and buses, and some that had been modified, a lot that hadn't. They'd just been restored. There were some originals, there were some new ones, there were Porsches. It was just a really great walk down memory lane, and it reinforced this is what the bus is about.
Right.
This is, there were people there. They were all but camping right there in the buses in the parking lot of the History Center. I mean, it was fun.
Mm-hmm.
And you you get that piece of nostalgia and you think, yes, this is what this is about. This is what we're after. This is what the new one needs to do. It needs to generate this kind of emotional response, to be honest.
Mhm,
Sure,
mhm.
sure.
And that's what makes it special. And Glenn, I think what you mentioned is the momentum, and I think you're right. They've lost that momentum at this point.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Or
And
it's in the
it's a
process of.
brand that has remarkable amounts of emotional reserve.
Right,
Like
right.
people who may not have owned a Volkswagen for years still have a place in their hearts for it.
Mhm.
And the company has sort of done what they've done, right? But they don't they don't seem to be able to figure out how to make it sell in this country. I'm not speaking about overseas.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
it's enough part of pop culture that people have used it as a logo for, we have a t-shirt company in town that uses it as part of their logo, that, they're going for that vibe.
Mhm.
Or it's not just Bart Simpson who goes punch buggy,
Mhm.
right? Punch buggy red. It's part of pop culture and has been for what, 60 plus 70
Yeah,
years.
more than that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I think they have an enormous amount of goodwill out there, but when you blow it with a release this badly, you lose some of that.
Yeah.
And it's not just this release. It's like you can look back at a whole bunch of, like, I would say that the last big hit that they had was the new Beetle,
Mm-hmm. Had
which
one of
which
those.
right, and which worked on two levels because you had people wanting that, and it was very popular at the time, and you had it brought people into the showroom who then bought a Jetta or a Golf or
Mm-hmm.
whatever else they bought,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think this has the same potential to do that. Maybe you don't want this, maybe you want a Taos or you want a ID3, yeah, it's ID4.
Four.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And yeah, so once again, it's not going to be the first time that a car maker squandered their emotional reserve, and it's hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Speaking of
They,
the ID4, a friend of mine has one, and God love him, was able to actually run the 220 line to his own garage. I'd burn the house down, but he's got the skills to do it himself. So he did, and loves it. Says it's one of the best cars he's ever
Yeah.
driven. He says it's got all kinds of power and really likes the vehicle. They actually they traded in their Atlas for an ID4 and prefer it. So I mean, they've got some good stuff out there,
oh
but
yeah, yeah.
you've really got to go looking for it, I think, more than you do some other things.
Right. Right. One of my disappointments with VW right now is that the Golf is gone here in the US, with the exception of the GTI, and the GTI has become very expensive. And I think the first GTI that they came out was one of those crystallizing moments for VW where they suddenly had an it car. It was the car on everybody's tongue. It was just, and for good reason. It was an amazing, tight little sports car on on a platform of an economy car that people could actually afford. um I'm praying that I don't know if it's the ID2 or ID3, but it's the little one that's based either on the Polo or the US Golf. The two, right? The
Right.
ID2.
It's this. It's not based on it, but it's that size in the
Yeah,
market.
right, exactly. And there's been all sorts of talk that VW is going to try to get this in the sub 30,000 market here in the US, which would be mind blowing, especially if it's that incredible sporty little car. I think that, that's sort of getting back to Volkswagen's roots again. I think about when the Rabbit was brand new in 1975, and at first, everybody was like, who's going to drive anything that small? And then people got behind the wheel. you know, and
Yeah.
just found out how incredibly fun this car was to drive, you know. And then everybody was doing their own mock-up of the Rabbit. The Dodge Omni, I mean, come on, that was just like
Well, and
they twisted it and bent it a little bit and went, hey, it's our car. But you know,
then they put a rag top on it, called it a cabriolet, and we loved
right.
it.
Yeah,
Sold
yeah,
it for
absolutely.
years.
Uh-huh. Right,
Sold it for
right,
years. And
right. They've had some tremendous models in their
yeah,
line, but just right
yeah,
now, it it's still good cars for sure. There's nothing in their lineup that makes me want to go, oh my God, I gotta have this. I haven't driven the ID4, but now I really want to because of pretty much of what you said. But I recently bought, and I was actually thinking about a GTI. It was priced out for me. So yeah,
yeah. The GTI prices start at 32 and then
32.
work
Yeah,
their way up.
yeah,
The
but you're
Golf
not getting much
Golf
for 32. Yeah,
yeah, the Golf R is 45,
yeah,
45, yeah, 45.
yeah.
And it's just that's a significant amount of, but you do get a lot, in
True.
either of those. They're I remember test driving the first GTI in this
Yeah,
country, and it was great. Yeah, I don't remember. I've been trying to remember what the circumstances were because I believe I worked for the car rental company at that point, and I don't remember why I was test driving that and honestly thinking of buying it. But I do remember it was $10,000, which
yeah.
at a time when the regular rabbits were, 60% of that. Um, you know, and and I've also talked about my father's checkered automotive past, but he did buy a Rabbit,
Yeah.
and it was a great car, and eventually all of us used it as our primary vehicle. But yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame. And Glenn and I have talked about the ID GTI. I believe that's what they called it, which is a GTI version of the ID2.
Yes, please, please, please,
Yeah,
please.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
When I was in college, uh, I had to go home for a weekend, and I had no way of getting there. I ended up renting a car from a local dealership, and it turned out to be it would have been an 81, 82 Rabbit. I mean, 81. And just, I had a glorious weekend just because of that car, you know.
Mhm.
I hated that I had to go home, but it made it fun anyways. And it was just like, what a great car. And that led all the way to 1986 when I bought, was really just the next generation, but it was a
Mhm.
car with stick to itiveness. So
Yeah. Look at their advertising. I mean, their advertising just always speaks to people. The Darth Vader ad, the
Oh,
GTI ads.
so good.
Yeah,
true.
so thoughtful, and I don't understand. I don't understand.
Yeah.
And can we? And this is something Glenn and I harp on all the time. Like, why don't you use names when when you talk about your, like, we sit here like the ID something 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 something. I was like, Passat is a lovely name. Phaeton is a lovely name. Golf, it
Yes.
all it conjures up something.
Yeah.
ID7? No, it doesn't do that.
Well, it's the MK6. What, the what now? Yeah.
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 Yeah. We're talking to you, Cadillac. Although Cadillac has now gone off in, as we've talked about before, the Cirque du Soleil route. Ironically, one of their cars is going to be called the Soleil. So the Lyrique, Celestique. Anyways, did that already. It's an old joke. Previous episode. If you didn't see that episode, look it up on YouTube. Yeah, I love this car company. I love their product. I love that they're bringing a Germanic through and through product down, to us for a lesser price than most of the other Germanic automakers. So I really wish them all the best. They need a little mojo again, is what it
Right,
comes down. They need
right.
that mojo mobile.
I think there are not many, especially foreign automakers, who have the same kind of loyalty among
Right.
their their base.
Mhm.
And, you know, I mean, there are folks who they are Chevy through and through, and that's the end of it. And don't even ask them to look at a Ford, right? But and vice versa.
Yeah.
I think you also have Volkswagen people who are that way, that, you know, I
Sure.
like my Volkswagen. I'm getting another Volkswagen. I'm going to have a Volkswagen. And, you know, as much as I appreciate your Nissan, your Saab, your Toyota, your Chevy, I'm going to wear my Volkswagen hat. So, you know,
Yep.
You
they need to
you
kind of
mentioned
work on that.
you mentioned Saab. I mean, that was a company that had that same loyalty, you know.
Because everybody's what? Everybody's got a sob story.
Ah,
So, in the interests of full disclosure, and this is kind of what you call burying the lead. I bought a Tiguan yesterday.
To replace your other Tiguan.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Good. Good.
Cool.
So, you know, I guess when it comes down to it, put up or shut up. Put your money where your mouth is. And so
Right.
here we are.
Cool.
You know, I have had this particular Tiguan for 12 years.
Right.
Okay.
It's been a great car. I still like this car, but she's developed quite a rattle. And you know, Tina's been good to me, but you know what? It's her time. I
Ford,
only
there
recently
was a-
discovered that, in fact, it was while we were shopping for this car, that the Taos is the replacement for the vehicle that I have now, which is a smaller Tiguan.
right.
So the
Right.
Taos is the replacement for that. The new Tiguan is actually a little bit bigger. So
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I love the current Tiguan. What a sharp car. What so
They're both nice. Yeah. They're
yeah,
both nice. Yeah.
absolutely.
All right, gentlemen. That's going to bring us to the end. Once again, like and subscribe us on YouTube. You can find us the whole playlist of Car-Pinionated episodes. You can hear Glenn go make comments on various names of Cadillacs. Uh,
Which
and
I really enjoy. I really
uh,
enjoy doing. Sorry.
Marshall, thank you for stopping by
Yeah.
thank you
and
for having
representing
me.
Central Ohio.
Getting a
All
little
right.
out of the Northeast zone, bringing it out into the rest of the country. We're
Right.
good here.
Right. Because normally Jeff's here and he's in Chicago. So, you know, the Midwest is getting its representation. But all right. If you have a weird car that you want to see featured here, email me at dstewart at fox61.com. And with that, we will all bid you all a fair